Welcome back, true believers, to the first Silver Screen podcast regular for a while. Hopefully, DK has been keeping you entertained with a couple of cult classics in the meanwhile. Unfortunately, he won't be joining this particular recording. I think he's actually off recording another cult treat for you all lucky people at the moment. So you're left with just me as the main host today. I'm your regular host, Michael Wilson. I will be the Peter One of today's proceedings. And I am joined by two guests, a returning guest and a first-time one. First of all, my Peter 2 for the rest of this podcast. Welcome back, Tobi. Tobi, hi.
Hi, the self-proclaimed Marvel expert of this podcast.
Oh, we're all that, and very pleased to say, joining us for the very first time is a guy who I know is a massive comic book nerd and a film fan, and also happens to be my nephew. So please welcome my Peter 3 for today, Harry. Welcome.
Hello.
Hi. And in case you hadn't guessed from all of those clues that we were giving you, today we are going to be reviewing the film Spider-Man No Way Home. Just a little bit of background for that. The reason that we are reviewing this today is because at the time this goes out, you will be almost able to catch Madam Web in cinemas. So I wanted to do something kind of related to tie in with that. We've already done reviews on the channel that you can find of Spider-Man 2 with myself and the Marvel Corner to Corner podcast, and myself and DK did a review of both the Venom films. So I put a poll out basically last year to try and tie in with knowing this film was coming, to say which of the Spider-Man or Sony films would you like us to review. And I put a list of almost everything down, but I'll be damned if I was sitting through Morbius again, so I don't know if I put that on the list or not. And the poll went out, and all the live-action Spider-Man films, except two that we've already seen, plus the Spider-Verse animated films, everything got some responses and some votes, but it was really a two-horse race, and Into the Spider-Verse came very close, but in the end, No Way Home just pipped it as the more popular, and so that's why we're here reviewing it. So hopefully it will, catch the algorithm with Madam Web being due out, and hopefully that's not a terrible movie, closer to maybe Venom or the Spider-Mans than Morbius, but we shall see. Are you guys both excited to go and see Madam Web?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly,
the excitement is palpable.
I'm honestly interested in it. Like,
I'm interested.
I wouldn't say excited. It's not like I'm staying up all night thinking, "Oh my God, Madam Web is coming out." But I think the trailer looks interesting. I think it's going to be fun.
Yeah,
if
I just like those characters.
Fun, that's all I can hope for.
I'm sure it'll be fun, and I think the thing is, it's kind of fitting again that we're looking at this movie because it seems very kind of multiversal Spider-Man-ish. Like, I know that there's characters in there that are like, I'm sure there's an Uncle Ben and there's a Peter Parker's mum character in there, and obviously we have the three different Spider-Women and Madam Web and everything, so it kind of hopefully will tie in and be quite good. And I like those female Spider-Woman characters and everything as well, and I love the Ezekiel Sims storyline in the comics, so hopefully they'll do that a little bit of justice in the movie. So we shall see, but we're not here to talk about that. So fittingly, we're looking at Spider-Man No Way Home, which it seems like it was a worthy winner, because whether or not you think it's the best Spider-Man movie, it's definitely the most Spider-Man movie. It's fair to say it kind of encompasses everything. I know, Harry, that you've said you went above and beyond the Call of Duty and you've watched all of the Spider-Man films leading up to it in the last week. That is dedication. I've seen them enough times to know them off by heart, but I just love that. So you were coming to this as like a Spider-Man huge revision session.
It's been a while since I watched a lot of them. It's probably been like nearly 10 years since I've watched the Tobey Maguire movies. When I was younger.
Oh, I love them. And what about you? Can you have you seen any of the others recently, Toby?
No.
Fair enough, but you did watch No Way Home at least, so that's.
I did watch No Way Home. I don't think. When was the last time I watched? I think I watched like the first Amazing Spider-Man like 2 years ago. So
I will say I think I've only seen Amazing Spider-Man 2 twice. Once in cinema, once on video, because I'm not a fan of that one. So yeah, not the best movie.
I've seen Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies a lot of times.
Have you? Oh, okay. Fair enough.
Yeah, me and my sister were big fans when we were younger, so we'd watch them all the time.
Oh, was she a fan of Andrew Garfield as well?
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough. Yeah, okay. I mean, I'd say that the films get quite redeemed by this, but I don't want to get ahead of ourselves into the review part of everything. So before we do that, I'm going to jump into a little small behind-the-scenes section. I haven't done too much because I want to try and keep it as brief as we can because I know there's lots to talk about in this movie. So if you bear with me, I've just got a little bits and pieces that I want to talk about. And if you guys want to chime in with anything or comment on anything, feel free. So yeah, here comes the BTS for Spider-Man No Way Home. As you probably know, this movie is part of Phase 4 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or the MCU, which is one segment of what will be known as the multiverse saga, when Phases 4 to 6 are complete in probably about 50 years' time at where things are going, but never mind. I don't know if you can remember this, but negotiations between Sony and Marvel Studios to alter their deal in which they produced the Spider-Man films together ended with Marvel Studios leaving the project in August 2019, but a negative fan reaction apparently led to a new deal between the companies a month later. There's rampant speculation that it was negotiation tactics, or that it was Tom Holland that talked them out of it or whatever, but whatever the reasons, I recall like coming out in the news, the deal's finished, so you'll see no more Spider-Man in the MCU, and they're going to fold him into, God help us, the Sony Spider-Man universe or whatever. And yeah, suffice to say that that didn't last very long until things were somehow resolved. And as I say, it'll have to remain as myth what exactly the cause of that was. Tom Holland, I think, claims responsibility for having rung up Bob Iger and told him how much the fans demanded it or whatever. But yeah, I think money talks personally, I guess we'll see. Yeah. Or we'll never know. So yeah, No Way Home, as you probably know, serves as a crossover between the MCU and the Spider-Man films directed by Sam Raimi and Mark Webb, and features several actors reprising their roles from those films, including the previous Spider-Man actors, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. The involvement of both actors was the subject of rampant speculation and numerous leaks, despite the efforts of Sony, Marvel, and the cast to conceal their involvement. And again, I can remember poor Andrew Garfield fielding questions about this for months. Yeah. Talking about being, what was it, the big game of werewolf, and he felt like he was trying to keep a secret and it was all fake, and then it turns out, nope, it was all true. They were there the whole time. So yeah, I remember being so, it was still quite a surprise when it happened in the cinema, because I think I was there with Sam, my brother, and that first moment when Andrew Garfield pops out, everybody in the cinema genuinely did like cheer and whoop, and I've never
the atmosphere was amazing. Never had that happen again.
Yeah, definitely.
But,
I mean,
but imagine you didn't know this. You just go like, oh, Spider-Man.
Well, I was still doubtful because we'd had no official confirmation, and at that point, it wasn't like the film needed the characters, because I was like, oh, well, it's a good film. But then when it did happen, I was just like, oh. But mind you, saying that, watching it back now, it is so obvious that they're just holding for the applause when those two characters appear, because Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire just stand still for a solid minute and just don't talk, because you're obviously like, that was the moment when everyone would be like, woo, yeah.
I remember no one did anything where Charlie Cox's Daredevil came on screen.
Yeah.
And I was so excited for that.
Yeah, I know, right? That was so weird. Yeah. Oh, that was another thrilling moment for somebody who's a fan of the Marvel TV stuff, because it's the first sort of... It wasn't the first character from those to come in, because I think younger Edwin Jarvis was in Endgame, but this was a big deal, like, you know, Matt Murdock. So, yeah. Very good stuff. I mean, kind of pointless. It was just a very brief cameo, but without wanting to spoil too much, he's in that film for as long as he's in Echo. So apparently he's making a business out of it.
One two.
Yeah. Shuffling around of the release orders because of COVID-19 meant that this film came out before Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, when it wasn't actually intended to. The release order was changed, which led to some changes. It still, though, came after Loki Season 1, which had arguably ended by weakening the barriers of and opening access to the multiverse, and this being the first kind of, revelation of that. But yeah, I did look into it, and originally Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness was supposed to come first, so Doctor Strange would have had knowledge of the multiverse. And I know that there's one key thing, which is that America Chavez would have been the one that was opening all the portals, instead of having to have Ned be randomly like, oh, my family's got this magic in them, and go around opening them, which might have worked a bit better. But other than that, I can't see a huge amount of too many changes, considering everything was shuffled around in the start of Phase 4 because of the whole COVID thing. But yeah, and then the less said I think about Multiverse of Madness, the better at this point. We have reviewed that as well, if anybody wants to go and suffer that for a bit. So, yeah. Yeah, well, we've kind of already touched on it, but I was always going to ask you guys, because I often do, like, what was the first time that you saw the film and what can you remember about it? So I'm assuming all three of us probably saw it in the cinema in the, the moment it was released, I assume.
Yeah, I'm released there.
Yeah.
Was it Screen 1? I think it was Screen 1.
Wow. Yeah, I always go on the release day, but I know you always have tickets pre-booked, Harry, because you're always so keen to get in there and everything. But yeah, that's cool. Who did you go with then, Harry?
My dad.
Oh, with your dad? Okay, cool. Cool. And I definitely went with my brother.
I think Jessica went with her friends the day afterwards.
Oh, your sister went with her friends. Oh, fair enough. Probably all just hoping Andrew Garfield appeared first before they went.
Yeah, they like painted their nails like in Spider-Man colours and everything.
Oh, cool. I hadn't done any of that. Although I am today wearing my No Way Home Spider-Man 3 Spider-Man t-shirt. There you go. So, yeah. How about you, Toby? Did you see it in Germany at the cinema as soon as it came out?
Yeah. Well, we always get it like for blockbuster. I think we get it like 1 or 2 days earlier than, I don't know about the UK, but definitely 1 day earlier than the US. So I'm always glad.
Yeah, it's only a few days earlier for us.
Yeah, I think Europe's more or less always the same. So Germany and the UK tend to get it a few days before the US, which I think we did.
Like for us, it's always well, it used to be Thursday, but now it's moving actually to Wednesday evening.
Ours has been Wednesdays for a while. Wednesdays usually when the bigger releases come out. Yeah, sometimes Tuesday at midnight.
Yeah, it used to be Thursday, but like a lot of Marvel stuff is also Wednesday evening now. Like we moved from Thursday to Wednesday midnight to Wednesday evening. I think soon we'll arrive at Tuesday.
We haven't got much to look forward to in the way of Marvel releases for a while because there's only Deadpool 3 this year, so we'll see how that is. Well, I say Marvel, I mean MCU. Obviously, we know there are 4 Sony Marvel movies coming out this year.
4? Wait.
Was it 3? Hang on, let me think.
Madam Web,
Venom.
Oh, and Venom. Okay, yeah, 3. I don't know where I got 4 from.
Maybe from the 4 DC movies that's traumatized us all throughout this year.
Oh yeah, probably actually. DC taking a well-deserved year off after just bombing hard 4 times in a row.
That's dedication.
Yeah, I keep meaning to review. I haven't actually got my final DCEU review up yet, and I've been to see Aquaman 2. It was fine, but anyway, what are we going to talk about?
Yeah.
It was fine. I didn't think it was particularly great. It wasn't as good as the original or anything, but it wasn't offensively bad. We're not here to talk about that. We're talking about the MCU. So, because I mean, a lot of people have been poo-pooing Marvel ever since the end of Endgame, and I think this film is kind of an interesting counter to that, with this being in Phase 4 and being probably I think it's just behind Endgame as the biggest financial success, and yet it opened during the COVID-19 pandemic. So it goes to show, it was very popular.
There's a lot of hot takes about the MCU out there that I don't care to address because
it is the second highest grossing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that the comic book films or the Marvel Cinematic Universe are on the deathbed or anything, but it's amazing that people forget a lot of the high points, particularly I think when it comes to Phase 4. Because as I was kind of looking at this and reviewing it, I went back and looked at Phase 4 overall, and I was like, do you know what? Maybe it's just me, but I really loved this movie. I loved Black Panther 2. I thought Black Widow, Shang-Chi were good movies.
I still haven't watched Wakanda Forever.
Have you not? Oh, wow.
No.
I really liked it. It's fantastic. You should give it a watch. Even if you didn't like the first Black Panther, the introduction of like Namor and Ironheart and stuff, there's a lot of interest in there. So it's worth a watch for sure.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And I see a lot of revisionist history about the MCU lately. Like people that suddenly out of nowhere claim that No Way Home was bad and Galaxy 3 was bad and was all bad.
Yeah.
Do you hear yourself? Ridiculous.
It's just they want things to fit the narrative, and I mean, don't get me wrong. There are more things since Endgame that I've disliked than that I've liked, but even still, I think
Madness.
Well, Multiverse of Madness, Eternals, Secret Invasion, and Quantumania were probably the 4 most egregious kind of.
Oh no.
Exactly.
I mean, Eternals is the only one that I give a pass because it's ambitious. So I'm like, it's fine.
Yeah.
There was.
I don't think it's terrible. I don't think. I mean, I think the worst ones, unfortunately, are the most recent failures, which would be Quantumania and Secret Invasion, because even Eternals and Multiverse of Madness get points for trying, as you said. And I know it's not popular, but I like Thor: Love and Thunder, so if you don't, tough.
Yeah, for me, it didn't hold up on a rewatch.
Yeah,
That's a
I wasn't a
shame.
big fan of the one from there.
Oh well.
Like I think the bad stuff just sticks out more on the rewatch, and it's just getting. But there are a lot of good things in it. I think it's just not coming together.
Yeah. Oh well. But anyway, yes, if I say there was a
So
lot
this
of
was
stuff
our Phase 4 review.
Yes, indeed. Well, I mean, it is relevant. This was a Phase 4 movie, as I said. But so yeah, if you are new to us, we're going to basically break the review down into sections like we always do, but very loosely. So starting with writing and plot, then direction, VFX, sound effects and music, etc. But again, we are not like beholden to that. If the conversation goes a different way, we'll happily go there and we'll just try and get all of our points out as we can. So yeah, just basically rough notes for me to follow so that I know where we're keeping up within the conversation. So in terms of the writing and the plot, did you guys have any overall thoughts before I jump into the beat by beat things or not?
I don't have any overall thoughts. I have a lot of little notes.
Little things. That's fine. We'll hit them one at a time then. And I presume you're the same, Harry, just little notes as we go.
Yeah, just little notes.
Cool. Well, I should probably say we begin this movie by basically throwing us right into the end of the previous Spider-Man movie, Far From Home. So if you haven't seen that, you're kind of, I'm assuming, a little bit lost because the big cliffhanger ending of that film was that Mysterio revealed Peter Parker's identity. So yeah, the opening part of the movie and kind of the main driving part of the plot is Peter's identity being public. And how did you guys feel like the start of the movie handled that? Other than giving us a sly chance for a Matt Murdock cameo and some good jokes.
I really liked it. I loved how it really gets into the energy directly, and you're really getting engaged directly. It really starts off like you said, directly after the last movie, which not very often happens, and it's a really cool move, really bold move. And like you really get into energy, into web swinging, into all of this directly at the beginning. It's a really energizing start.
Yeah, it is. It's very high action, and as I say, even when it's played for humor, it is like you said. It's immediately him, sort of Peter grabbing MJ and swinging around, and then leaving her on top and getting the phone call from Ned, and the whole sort of dude.
Yeah, kind just panicking throughout those.
Exactly, but yeah, I mean, it's high energy, and as you said, I think it's a really interesting way because they kind of marketed it a lot because they couldn't really sell any of the big secrets. They marketed it a lot as this is the first time in the cinematic history of Spider-Man that his identity has been public. And yeah, I mean, I think it was handled as best it absolutely could have been. And they used it to do what they often do with Spider-Man stories in the comics and films and stuff, which is to make him be kind of beaten down and kind of, feel responsible for everybody's problems. And that's why people aren't getting into college and so on and so forth. So, and yeah, I mean, even before that, though, having to move to a new place and seeing that there are some people who think he's a hero, some that, I believe Mysterio and whatever. But yeah, I think an interesting thing, and I think they spent just about as long dealing with that as they should have. They didn't go too far into it after he kind of went to Doctor Strange and was like, don't like this, let's change it kind of thing. So, yeah. I've just got a load of random notes that are in no particular order, so bear with me, because I thought I was going to go beat by beat, but I'm not going to. So I will say, obviously, this is the first, well, not the first, but the first major use of the multiverse in the MCU. They touched on it in Loki, but this is the first thing that does it, and I would say arguably still the thing that uses it the best. What are you guys' thoughts on the way that that's incorporated?
Yeah, it's pretty good. I like how there's little like silhouettes of different Spider-Man characters towards the end.
Yeah, I've read about that, but I still can't spot.
Raven the Hunter, Blackheart, you can see like all them.
I still can't see them, but I've seen people online identify some of them, and one of them's another Spider-Man, so it's either like a doppelganger or a superior Spider-Man. I think Madam Web, they said, was in there. And I think I can make out Kraven because he's holding a big spear, maybe.
Yeah,
but it's very weird. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the multiverse, though, the way that they basically used it to, instead of sort of introducing anything new, they folded in the two other attempts to do Spider-Man universes. I thought that was really clever. And it gave you a chance to explore characters that we knew. And that, that's a nice shortcut for emotional depth, but it also gave them a chance to have a nice final act that they never really got to because their franchises were cancelled or rebooted. Did you guys like that as well, or not?
Yes.
You've got Andrew's redemption. saves
Yes.
MJ.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's a key moment. Definitely. Yeah. I mean, that was. I think that was something I read that one of the actors came up with on the day as an idea. But it's so cool that, like I said, they all deal with unloading their traumas, and his was basically not being able to save Gwen. And then I love that moment. I think a lot of people, well, basically everybody that invested in those movies loved that moment, and it's a really cool idea. Sure. Anything stick out to you, Tobi, that from the use of these characters?
Just in general about the multiversal use here, I think it's really clever because in not one moment it does feel like a fan service thing, and that's hard to achieve. I feel.
Yeah.
Like I'm not saying there are moments that are fan servicey, but the characters in this movie acting in this movie never feel like it's just a thing done because of fan service. It always feels like it's part of the plot. It makes sense why it's here. It makes sense why that exists.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah.
I think I would say it is fan service, but it's one of those things where I don't think that's necessarily the kind of ugly word that people think it is. And if it's done correctly and done right, which I think this film is a great example of, then that's when fan service works. But as you said, it's too often it's just a question of I would say, without wanting to keep picking on it, I would say an example of fan service done bad is Multiverse of Madness, which was just, here are a bunch of characters that you haven't seen before, and different. Oh, here's an X-Man, here's an Inhuman, here's Mr. Fantastic, and they're here purely to get killed and buy. And it's kind of like, well, that was meaningless. That could have been anybody, So
exactly.
But yeah, so no, but this I really do like how it's. I mean, even to the villains. I mean, the fact that it was. I never thought I'd see like Doc Ock and the Green Goblin, or even Lizard and Electro again, and it was such a cool little thing. Yeah,
and they were handled so well.
Yeah,
for
sure.
But I think we're talking about the villains in the later part, so I'm not going on a tangent about it.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, we will later, then, that's for sure, because I definitely think. That's definitely one of the film's strengths. Although I will say, I've been frustrated ever since the film came out that they didn't just throw in one more villain and just make it the Sinister Six, because there's 5 of them. It's so obvious it's right there. But never mind. Yeah, I can't believe nobody thought of that. Anyway. The other thing that I have a little nitpick about is that they kind of try to explicitly say that the spell goes wrong because the nature of the problem is that it pulls in everybody who knows that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, but I'm pretty sure that Lizard and Venom didn't know who he was. So, like, why did they get pulled in? It's a nitpick, and I think people have tried to explain the Venom one by saying, "Well,
our version of Venom came through."
Yeah, they say that.
Version.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't know who Spider-Man is till he comes to this universe. But people have said, well, there's a line in what is it, Venom Let There Be Carnage, where they say, oh, throughout the multiverse, the symbiotes are all like a hive mind. So if one of them knows Peter Parker Spider-Man, they all do. So that's why he's there. Fair enough, but that still doesn't really explain the Lizard. Because
I mean, shouldn't there have then just been like 1 million Venoms in this movie all over the place?
Well, I mean, it did get the wrong one.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, they were very careful.
The spell to only get one. Towards the end.
Yeah. Would you really want to see terrible Topher Grace Venom? Because I wouldn't. I'll tell you what.
No.
Anyway,
literally preying on his own form.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, do you guys think this? Do you think the multiverse idea worked? And do you think it is do you agree with me? It's the best use of it so far.
Yeah, it's the best use. I'm trying to think where it all has been used, but
well, I mean, Multiverse of Madness, but also hints of it in Loki and Quantumania, I suppose. And outside of Marvel, I mean, you've got DC did Crisis on Infinite Earths on TV.
Okay, no, I was just thinking of Marvel right now.
Okay. I mean, even technically, Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse are both multiverse things that I think are really, really good, but not quite at the level of this, because I don't know. I respond to the story of this one, I think, a little bit more.
Yeah, I think this is more straight multiverse movie, while Into the Spider-Verse is more like in the everything everywhere all at once type of multiverse movie. It's more like crazy
normally
stuff.
Multiverse movies, everything's all crowded, like there's too much. This is more grounded.
Yeah,
yeah,
for sure. Well, let's see. So, I kind of love that for me, and I'll go into this now. For me, one of the things that I love about this film, not to tip my hand in terms of whether I liked or disliked it, but one of the things I love is that it seems to be basically like it's a canon repair film for the MCU Spider-Man, because I know it was wildly popular, but I was not really a big fan of Spider-Man Homecoming, because to me it just didn't feel quite right, and a lot of the stuff that's key to Spider-Man they'd left out. And I think it's quite telling that this film basically reintroduces all of those things. So you have like Aunt May is given the Uncle Ben moment from the origin that everybody said they didn't really want, but I think is vital to Spider-Man. So she gets to be the one that says, with great power there must come great responsibility, and gives him that, I suppose, canon event is what Across the Spider-Verse would call it, that all these kind of Spider-Men are meant to have.
I have opinions about this.
Okay, go for it. Yeah.
Well, when we did this top 10 Marvel where I ranted about this and was like not amused by it after rewatching it, I'm at this point where I'm like, it works very perfectly in this movie, but I feel like as a part of this trilogy, it kind of disrupts maybe a bit too much this trilogy in a way. Like I said, it's very retroactively trying to fix things, and that is a little awkward, I think. But contained in this movie, it works perfectly. But having the other two movies as well, Homecoming and Far From Home, I think it maybe even doubles already what they tried to do with Tony, but then also kind of botched. It's a little bit awkward, I'd say.
See, I don't agree. I think it works perfectly for me because, like I said, it's the kind of, although people didn't think they wanted that kind of Uncle Ben moment, I think it's key to the character of Spider-Man, and I think the fact that I think it helps that he's in scenes with the other two who have had the same moments, and they can all kind of share their trauma. Because, like I said, I love Spider-Man, but one of the things that's kind of key about the character is he basically just has to have life crapping on him at all times, so that you can sort of think, yeah, he's the hero that conquers all of this, because my word, his life is pretty dark when you look at it and all the stuff he's been through and everything. And I think for me, I felt like there was a moment, and it's just before the other two Spider-Men come in, where it was like he's at his darkest hour because the world knows who he is and he hates it. He's still, as he says, I'm the world's most famous person, but I'm still broke. He's got no privacy whatsoever. He's hated by half the population. And at that point, he's tried to kind of help the villains, and Aunt May's being killed. And he's like absolutely the darkest moment. And I was like, it's quite telling that the film basically is effectively saying it's at this point that he needs to learn the importance of the legacy of Spider-Man. And that's why the very next scene is the other two Peter Parkers coming in. And I was like, that's actually really genius kind of structuring of the film, the way that they did that, because it's working perfectly well as a film, like I said, but I feel like because they held off the fan servicey part until, like I said, it was needed there to be like to reinforce why we need Spider-Man and the importance, and to have that kind of brotherly bond that all three of them have. I think that works really well. Yeah, but obviously, yeah, you don't agree. You don't love the Aunt May getting killed thing, I presume, Toby. So,
yeah. Well, I love it as part of this movie, but I don't love it as part of the trilogy. That's kind of my stance.
Yeah, see, that's what I was saying, because I think, like I said, I didn't love the MCU Spider-Man, and I think, fortunately for me, all of the things that I had an issue with are gone because of the plot of this movie. So the idea that far too many people know that Peter Parker is Spider-Man is resolved at the end. The idea that he's basically, and I know it's a common criticism, but I kind of agree with it, that he was like Iron Man Jr., because I always hated that he was basically flying around in miniature Spider-Man, Iron Man type suits. So I love at the end of the movie that he's basically just made his own suit inspired by the other two for the first time as well. And it's not Stark Tech, and he doesn't have all this $1 billion of technology he can call on. He just literally is, the neighborhood Spider-Man going out and helping. I don't love that he's got nobody on his side at this point, because that is too far for me of the life's beating you up thing, because the whole point in Aunt May is usually that she's there as his kind of rock when everybody else is lost. And I feel just so devastated at the end of this movie when everybody forgets who he is, and he decides to do the Spider-Man heroic sacrifice thing of, I'm not going to tell them because their life's better off. And I'm kind of like, ooh, it's a very dark, lonely life for poor Peter Parker at the end of this movie, isn't it? And I don't love that.
The entire trilogy is just like an origin story, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well, I think I don't have issues with the ending, to make this clear. I just think it leaves it in an awkward place for whatever will be Spider-Man 4, which we know will happen.
Oh yeah, they've confirmed that. Yeah.
So it's like honestly, it's a reboot almost. Really, like it's all back. We have only Peter, and that's kind of a weird thing for have a fourth movie and like no one is back. But at the same time, you can't bring anyone back because then you're just undermining this ending. So it's
that's the thing. That's not this movie's fault, but I agree with you. I think it's going to be very important to see how they handle bringing back MJ and Ned, because it is going to be a huge letdown if they've kind of built this up and then at the start of the next movie it's just like, oh, by the way, here's the truth after all. And so they have to they're going to have to tread very carefully with that plot, I think, basically.
Yeah, and also like not bringing anyone back also, I think, would be weird if they just start over.
I think they've confirmed it's going to be the same cast, so it'll be like Zendaya and Jacob Batalon and whatever will be back in the movie. But like you said, it's a question of, will they be back just as random, like people that help out but don't know who he is? Will they get their memories back somehow? What will happen? I don't even know there's a chance we might see Spider-Man before Spider-Man 4, and that might answer these questions if it's some kind of big Secret Wars event that then undoes the magic or reboots the universe or whatever else. So
that would be stupid. Please don't.
Yeah.
Well, stranger things have happened, as we know, but yeah.
Well, we all hate those stranger things that happen.
Yeah, but that's comics. Every 10 years they're going to do it anyway. So.
Yeah, as a DC fan, I'm used to reboots by now.
Yeah. Oh, yes. They're on about their 7th in the last 10 years or something, aren't they, at this point? Yeah.
Infinite Crisis was like the last one.
Oh, that's way more since then. Infinite Crisis, Rebirth, I think Year One at one point. But Marvel are just as bad for doing all new, all different, and then Age of Heroes and a whole bunch of stuff. They're always rebooting because they think people won't jump on unless it's an issue 1 and whatever. But yeah, I'm with you. I hope the MCU doesn't decide that the only way forward is to Doctor Who it, as I'm going to call it, and basically reboot it from the number it's back from number 1 again. So yeah, kind of annoying. Cool. So the other thing I've got like a little bit about in my notes of writing is that I really love, I think they kind of pay the perfect kind of, again, not to use the word, but fan service when it comes to the conversations that the 3 Spider-Men have. Did you guys have any favorite things that come up? Because I think it's so cool that they do all the things that you'd hope that they would fit into the script.
Simply the moment where they find out about Tobi's organic webs.
Yes, absolutely.
Great.
That was the first one I have as well, when they're asking about it and he's a little bit iffy and
hey, you can't do that, can't you?
You can't do that. Have you ever had a weblog? Yeah, actually, now that I'm remembering, I did once, yes. And then the obvious kind of, does it just come out of your wrists? Yeah, it does. So yeah, I love those Maguire Spider-Man movies. It's so great for me to see the kind of the characters come back, and I know, again, people might well complain about this level of fan service, but I did get a chuckle when they used the line from Norman Osborn when he's like, hey, I could help. I'm something of a scientist myself. Because that's become such a meme.
Yeah, that was fun. That was funny. I don't care. That was fun.
There's so many Norman Osborn memes. Have you seen the McRib one?
No. What's that one?
It's just they replace every scene with him just wanting to have a McRib.
Fair enough. Cool. So yeah, we're organically touching on it, so we'll talk a little bit about the villains, because as I said, there was the humor of the kind of the Green Goblin thing, but I think they perfectly kind of marry that with the right reverence of the references back. So I love whenever Doc Ock's like the power of the sword in the palm of my hand, or mentioning, his experiments or the reasons behind him attacking. And I think, I've always long said Spider-Man 2 is like a contender for my favorite comic book or superhero movie. And I love the way that the action scenes play with Doc Ock's tentacles and stuff. And I think for me, his kind of opening scene in this movie, when they're on the bridge and Doc Ock attacks Spider-Man as he's kind of talking to the admissions lady from the university or whatever. For me, that's an equally good action scene as any of the Doc Ock scenes in Spider-Man 2. I just think it's fantastic. Did you guys like it as well? Or?
Yeah, I honestly think it was the best action scene in the movie.
Yeah.
I love the end battle, but this is just really cool to watch. This is just the one that's most fun to watch.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it is partly because I'm having the thrill of like these are my favorite, versions of the characters from the movie I love. But I also like that the way they interact with this new universe and kind of the fact that as much as I kind of dislike the kind of Iron Manization of Spider-Man, the fact is his suit has got the nanotech, and so it just takes over Doc Ock's tentacles, and he's like, oh, okay, now what? So it's a cool little idea. What about you, Harry? Anything?
Electro wanted to steal the arc reactor.
Yeah, of course, yeah. And before I forget, I will say I do like that they kind of go out of their way to also improve the designs of the villains that they've kind of mucked up in the previous films. So that instead of having the weird Ultimate-inspired blue Electro, he's just a person with the electric powers, and they even have the Easter egg
it's
of
more
like
the comics. You've got like the helmet, whatever. Mask.
Yeah, the little mask that's like the electricity forms what looks like the cheesy mask on Electro's face. But even like Green Goblin, I was never a big fan of. Even though I love the Raimi films, I was never a fan of like the robotic suit thing that they gave him in the first Spider-Man film, and they kind of go out of their way to break the helmet in this movie, give him the kind of dilapidated looking green cloak and the purple hood and everything. And I was like, even the Green Goblin looks better in this movie than the previous attempt at it. Yeah, I will say I didn't love the fact that it was quite blatantly obvious that they didn't get the actors back for Lizard and Sandman, so it was just CGI the whole
seems
time.
like CGI then.
Yeah, I mean, it's not so bad for Lizard because that's what the character's like, but there's no reason why the Sandman would be walking around just in sand form the entire time. So it's quite obvious, like, okay, you couldn't get the actor, whatever. Yeah. Anything there? What were you going to reference about the villains then, Tobi?
Yeah, well, they give Otto Octavius like a redemption arc, kind of.
Yeah.
And what I really liked about it is that he gets a redemption arc because he's the only one that, after all this fixing stuff, he gets to keep his power. So, like, he has no problem staying with his arms, just not having this, I think it's called noise in his head.
Yeah,
so,
well, I mean, that's
he wants to keep the powers, but the others, they are going to lose their powers. So it makes more sense that they're more nervous about it and ultimately don't want to go through it, ultimately then go through it.
It's a weird situation because I think it stems back to Spider-Man 2, where they kind of say like it's because the inhibitor chip is damaged that the arms have kind of taken over and the AI of them is controlling him now. So if you repair that, then you're kind of fine. He doesn't need to worry about it. He controls the arms now. But you are right that it is weird that that's the only kind of like powers, I suppose, that they get to keep. But then again, a few of them are kind of like, would you really want to do that? Like, would you want to stay as a lizard man forever? Because I wouldn't.
Just wants to turn everyone into lizards. I think you would love to.
I have to say as well, there's so many little moments. Like, I know people criticize the humor in Marvel films, but I laughed at so many of the cool moments at the start and like the moments the villains get. And there was a line that the lizard has in this film that I never noticed before or never paid attention to when they're all talking in Doctor Strange's dungeon, and Lizard just goes, "No way, that's his girlfriend. No way." That's so funny. Yeah, cool. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I like that Doc Ock has that redemption arc because I think that character was always kind of sympathetic more than the others. I mean, Norman to an extent when he's not being the Green Goblin, but I think this movie kind of pushes him a bit too far in the other direction to still consider him sympathetic with the whole killing of Aunt May and everything. But I do love though that his Peter basically stops, Tom Holland Peter from murdering him at the end. I think that's a really cool, powerful moment as well. Yeah.
Really sad that the redemption arc of Octavius is just, I think is probably one of the best, maybe the best arc of this movie, I think, in my opinion.
I'd say I like all of the...
outside of the main cast.
Yeah. So what do you guys think about, because the overall kind of idea of the film basically boils down to Peter Parker, Spider-Man is kind of a heroic figure, as we know from the whole power and responsibility speech and whatever, and Aunt May being, the kind of person that tries to teach him to be good. So it all boils down to him basically being so moral that he won't send these villains back to die and he wants to cure them. How do you guys feel about that plot line? Because I personally love it, but I can see some people that might be like, well, it's not your responsibility, or you're a bit gullible, or I just was a little bit too cheesy, maybe. So yeah, what were you guys' takes on that?
I don't think it's too cheesy. I think it's in his nature to do that.
Yeah.
I also think it really works because like he doesn't know these people like to a point where like he can just go 100% judgment. They are beyond helping. Like he just met them, like they made some shit, and like he doesn't know the details of it all that maybe the other Spider-Man do know more about. So I think it makes sense that he is like, I'm gonna help these people.
Yeah.
Like, there might be good people underneath, and like he has that example of Osborn, the good half of Osborn.
Yeah, I mean, well, all of them really. I mean, he doesn't know that the lizard in his human form is completely different, and even to the point of like Sandman doesn't do anything wrong. Yeah. It's only when Doctor Strange turns up, he's like, freak, in the cell you go, and it's kind of like, hey man, I was helping you. Yeah, so I'm with you on that. I think you can definitely see why he would be like, it's not fair to judge them or to send them back just to die would be really harsh. But yeah, cool. So I think the only other thing we really haven't talked about in terms of like major plot writing ideas of the movie is there's always the integration of an MCU character in this particular trilogy, and it's Tony Stark in Homecoming, obviously Nick Fury in Far From Home, and in this one, obviously it's Doctor Strange. I personally love whenever Spider-Man and Doctor Strange interact because I'm a classic comic book nerd, and whenever those kind of Stan Lee, Steve Ditko creations interact, it makes my classic comic book nerd head very happy. But yeah, I think to me there are moments in the film where it's quite obvious that Strange is there to fulfill a function and they don't really know what to do with him a whole lot of the time, which is a bit of a shame.
He's trapped in the mirror dimension for like 45 minutes.
For a while. I mean, but not even that, like when they go to the Sanctum, although a lot of the humor and kind of moments like that work for me, I still don't get the joke or the point of like they turn up to the Sanctum and it's completely covered in snow. And it's like, oh, well, somebody left a portal open, blah, blah, blah. Like, this just isn't really funny. You know, it's kind of just weird. Yeah, I think Strange acts a little bit weird, I think, for me throughout it. Because I remember people saying at the time maybe it was like a scroll, or maybe it would have been the effect the multiverse had if it had come after his movie or whatever. But yeah, there's a kind of odd, I guess, meanness at times.
Yeah, and he's like a little bit goofy in a weird way in this movie.
Like, that's Scooby-Doo line.
Yeah, and then I'm like, I don't know. Like it's not that Doctor Strange can't be funny in the movies, but like this is the wrong kind.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's not the fact that he's funny, it's the fact that it's using for humor, it's kind of trying to make him look incompetent, and we know that he's not. So yeah, I mean, even to the point of like the comedy with him keep changing the spell and everything, and it's kind of, for me, that it veers just a bit too far on the side of, all right, you're being a bit silly here, aren't we? Really, you know. I mean, I get it; it's necessary for the plot, but yeah, I much preferred the kind of humor of the idea afterwards when Doctor Strange is like, "What? You haven't even asked? You wanted me to brainwash the world before you even thought to just, go to admissions and talk to them?" Because we've all been there. So, yeah. I can't really think of anything else, but no, I mean, I love the use of Doctor Strange, and I will say, I'll probably talk about it a bit more when we talk about the direction and stuff. But the scenes in the mirror dimension are just, as we talked about Tobi during our Doctor Strange review, just gorgeous. They just look incredible. Yeah. Some of the best scenes in the movie, and I really do love that they remember that, unlike in Homecoming, they remember that Peter Parker is a genius. So even though Doctor Strange thinks he's got the best of him in the mirror dimension, he's like, "No, just geometry. I know that." So he basically just gets the better of Strange because he's smarter than him. And I'm like, yes, exactly. That was exactly what would happen. So yeah. Love it, just love it. And that's the thing, you kind of have to have the magic kind of thing there. And I will say that there's a great moment at the end after I've criticized kind of Doctor Strange and whatever. I do really love how heartfelt it is at the end when he basically admits that, we've saved the world together and we're all going to forget, that everybody that loves you, all of us, will forget who you are. And you can see that, I think, in Benedict Cumberbatch's performance, that he's really hurt by this. He doesn't want to kind of forget him. And there is that beautiful kind of camaraderie. And it probably doesn't mean anything to you if you haven't seen Infinity War and Endgame, unfortunately. But, given that we can kind of appreciate that relationship, I think, a bit more as well. So, speaking of which, that was also pretty funny when they were discussing the different villains they'd all fought as Spider-Man. And, Tobi Maguire's like, I faced an alien made out of black goo. And Tom Holland's like, I faced a purple alien in outer space. And then Andrew Garfield goes, oh, man, I just fought a dude in a rhino suit. I'm kind of lame. No, you're amazing. Yeah, love it.
It's just funny
the
because
kind of way.
everyone always says he's like the coolest Spider-Man. Like he's not
for sure.
He's not portrayed as like nerdy in the movies.
Definitely. Yeah, but I think, as I say, going back to kind of to finish off what I was saying about, you know, the characters of Doctor Strange and Spider-Man, the way they're portrayed here, and the way that I like the Spider-Man side of things, I think it all boils down to the lines about like Doctor Strange saying, in the grand calculus of the multiverse, their sacrifice means infinitely more than their lives. I'm sorry, if they die, they die, which is quite callous. And then, you know, the villain saying to Spider-Man later, you could have just left us to die. Why didn't you? And then I think it's MJ responds with, because it's not who he is. It's as simple as that. Just like, yes, love it. I love it. And because we, you know, it's in the writing, and I have to talk about it because I guess I do. That post-credit scene, just what the heck? Just Venom chatting with Danny Rojas and Ted Lasso for no reason. What was that about?
It like sets up the black suit, I guess, because you see like a little bit of Venom.
It would be nice if it did, but I mean, this is how many years removed, and we still haven't done anything about that yet. So
I mean, I guess they're gonna pick up in Spider-Man 4, like where else? Which now thinking about it is not the worst idea for a villain for the next Spider-Man, seeing how this ended. I think that might make sense. It makes sense in my head.
What does the black suit you mean?
Yeah, black suit Venom, this storyline. I think it does make sense for the next movie to go there.
It's interesting because I remember that it was during the first comic book Secret Wars that Spider-Man got the black suit in the first place, before they even knew it was like a symbiote or Venom or whatever. So it'll be interesting if it happens in the kind of the adaptation of the more modern Secret Wars.
No, it's entirely possible. Please stop doing important things in these crossover movies. We had this with Guardians of the Galaxy, and it left everyone traumatized for.
True.
Like, don't.
I mean, you're going to have to do some things, though, if it's a big epic kind of thing like they're trying to make out it is. And now you haven't got the use of Kang anymore. So.
Yeah, but do it with characters that are going to die or not appear anyway.
Yeah, well, fair enough.
No, I mean, movies, please don't.
No, but I mean, that it just seemed like there was so much build up to Venom. You know, right the way everybody was saying, you know, you have to go and see Let There Be Carnage because the post-credit scene's a huge thing, and it was him getting transported to the MCU at the end of that movie, and then you see the post-credit scene of this, and it's him just getting sent straight back, and it's like, so was all of that just so that we could have a tiny bit of symbiote in the MCU that they're not going to address for years? It's kind of, I mean, I don't love any of the post-credit scenes basically after, you know, from Phase 4 onwards anyway, because they all just feel like, and here's something we might address at some point in the future.
Yeah, they're all just sign up like the next movie.
Yeah, but not even the next movie. It's just stuff that we haven't seen. It's always like, here's Harry Styles, or here's Hercules, or here's you know whatever else, and we're not dealing with it. It's just kind of.
It's often a movie that is not even announced. Like, it's a future movie. We don't know. Like, the bare minimum is I should be able to look at a post-credit scene and go, oh, this is this movie. Even if it's like not the next one, but the second next or third next. I should know it's this movie. Yeah. We know this movie, it's been announced. Not, it's a movie somewhere in the next 10 years. I don't know. Make up a name.
Exactly.
We might change the actor in that time as well.
Oh, dear. Yeah, that's the other thing I wanted to say, because kind of like, I was thinking about this earlier, and I was kind of thinking it's annoying, and I know we've talked about this at length, Toby, but it's annoying that Marvel see the whole Jonathan Major situation as a problem, because like I said, the first two uses of the multiverse are Loki season 1 and this, and they both set up that your multiversal variants all don't look like you.
Yeah, so... the one guy who was like an infinite amount of versions of him. And they all look like Jonathan Majors.
Yeah, and I think we all give consent to it and ignore the Quantumania post-credit scene.
Oh yeah, at this point we're just like, yeah, whatever.
Just do it. It hasn't stopped you ignoring the first Doctor Strange post-credit scene since how many years?
Oh god, that's a good point. Oof.
So you could do it again.
I think that's basically all I have on the writing anyway. So did you guys have anything outstanding that you wanted to talk about? Any other notes on that?
I did have a note and I forgot what it did now. Oh yeah, I have it again. One small little thing, which I think is really clever, is the fact that they make Wong the Sorcerer Supreme because Doctor Strange got blipped. And
you blipped.
Yeah, and and it allows him to appear more often throughout the stuff which he has. I think because just building Benedict Cumberbatch for every little appearance is maybe a bit expensive.
Yeah.
So it allows the Sorcerer Supreme to just be all over the place. Like he was in She-Hulk and in...
I loved him in She-Hulk Wong. It was great.
Yeah, was it in the Sopranos or something? He just comes and
yeah, Wong and Madison were the best double act in Phase 4.
Really cool.
That was fantastic. Oh, I hope we get another season of that show.
And,
even though the usual suspect hated it.
And She-Hulk, no way. I'm not watching another season of She-Hulk.
Oh, well. Yeah, so is that everything for the writing then before I move us to the just acting in general, which we've kind of talked about, I think, at length, but we can touch on anything we haven't mentioned. So, yeah. Anything on writing or...
I think it's writing. What I really like is the way they incorporate media and like TikTok and that stuff. Like in 99.9% of movies, this comes off as really corny, really awkward, really weird. Look, kids, we are fun. And I don't know how it pulls it off, but it just feels organically. It just fits in and works perfectly.
I haven't mentioned it, but I think I might have mentioned it when it comes to the acting because it's related to the J.K. Simmons. It's kind of nice to see him back as a different J. Jonah Jameson. But it's very interesting that because of the times that we're in, instead of being like the angry newspaper editor, he's basically like Alex Jones, the kind of controversial, like just doing a YouTube channel where he's railing against
It's just him with tons of newspapers around him in his house.
Yeah, but they say like the controversial YouTube channel that's based on like all of the right wing kind of stuff that you get nowadays that are just spewing hate rather than being like a reputable newspaper or whatever. And I think it's an interesting way to take that character because he's really detestable as well because he's basically responsible for May's death and then spends the time blaming Spider-Man afterwards when he does the interview and calls in and he's like, "Oh, see, it's all your fault." And I was like, "You're the one that trailed him, you jerk." Anyway.
Also really fun how the police arrives at the scene and just they don't know that she's like dead. They could have run in and rescued her. They're just too busy.
It's not actually the police because somebody pointed this out on one of the
police, what is it?
Somebody on IMDb was like, the police just burst in and start shooting and they would never do that. And somebody was like, it's not the police, it's damage control, who we've seen are quite capable of doing that. They tried to kill Ms. Marvel just like because she was in trouble, you know?
No, the thing I just mean is that they just, not that they're directly shooting, but that they're basically letting a civilian die.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Nobody checks on me at all. It's just kind of like, Peter, just run.
She could have not been dead. Who knows? They don't know.
Well, she is by the end. I tell you what.
Yeah, because they just let her there.
It's weird though because like that in that scene, Happy's the one that basically decides, even though he's got no like line of sight, he can't really see much going on. It's just kind of like, "Oh, Peter, you better run. She's dead." And I'm like, "How can you tell from there?" You know? No, I just know our hearts are linked. I guess I don't know. Yeah.
So
cool. Anything on writing from you, Harry, before we move on?
No, really.
Well, I'll try and knock a lot of the acting out just because I say we've talked about some of it, and I don't have much to say on a few of the things. But I'll come to you guys first, and Tobi, we'll start with you. What did you have any particular sort of things you thought would stand out in the acting department?
Standout things. I think everyone is just doing a phenomenal job. I'm trying to think if anyone was like the top player, but like I just think everyone in the acting department is doing amazing. Like I could say about everyone what they did great, but I don't want to go on 30 minutes.
I mean, I've got little examples, but I mean, we'd be here all day if we said like every little bit that was great. But we've talked about a few. Of them. I said when it comes to the three Spider-Men, we've already said we love that they take you on their emotional journeys and their arcs. And yeah, I mean, even Tom Holland, the key things for me are like when he's basically trying to be the hero Spider-Man, but mostly during the Aunt May death scene. I found that like really heartbreaking and quite powerful. And then when he says he wants to kill Osborn because of it afterwards, I really felt like that rage, you know? Yeah.
It's like I'm going to kill you myself.
Yeah, exactly. And but like, as I said, it's nice to be able to touch base with the Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire because we never thought we'd see them again. And we do get, as you mentioned, that moment of redemption for the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, or Tobey Maguire talking about how he's making it work with MJ, and that kind of nice.
Yeah, he's calmed down now.
Yeah, the nice moment of him like meeting Octavius again when he's been cured, and there's actually like a nice little "oh dear boy, it's great to see you again" moment and everything, and yeah, all that I absolutely love. Suffice to say. Where was I going? So, did you guys have anything about the three Spider-Men that you wanted to bring up that I haven't yet?
Well, I guess it's more of a writing thing, but I just really like how they just wrote with it that the actors are older, so we're just going to push the Spider-Man a couple of years into the future.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
that's just a great idea, and
it is. It's very clever, very cleverly done.
Yeah.
I said that it takes complete advantage of the fact that I would assume 100%, if not like 99% of the people watching this are familiar with these characters, and you've done the legwork because you know them rather than having to introduce them and then start to care about them. So cool. So what did you guys think about Marissa Tomei? Because I think she's been great as Aunt May throughout these films. She's got a nice kind of, she's got a nice charming kind of humor to her, but she absolutely sold me on when she had to basically become the Uncle Ben figure in this movie and delivered the actual correct version of the line, by the way, from the comic. So I love that. Same or not?
Yeah, no, I love her throughout the three movies. Well, I guess it's again a writing thing, but I really like how across the three movies she feels and probably is more present than the other Aunt May. So I really like that she's not taking too much space up, but like I feel like she has more space in these movies than in the other.
Yeah, I feel like it's probably because having made her a bit younger, I think she gets to be a bit more protective of Peter.
Yeah.
Whereas because elderly Aunt May, it always feels like Peter's kind of protecting her. So it's a different dynamic in that regard, which again I think works for when she basically has to sacrifice herself to give him the motivation, I suppose. Yeah. So what did you think about, let's see, Zendaya and Jacob Batalon as MJ and Ned as the kind of sidekick versions of the characters? Aside from the fact that it's entirely unbelievable that you would not tell Zendaya that she's your girlfriend. Come on. But yeah. Any thoughts on that? I think they work really well as the sidekicks for this Spider-Man myself.
I totally agree. I think they work really well, mostly because they both bring a different energy and they complement each other so well. I think that's really the key of it.
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
It's nice how close they are, like the actors are so close in real life. It's
just great actors as well, though. I mean, even like the little moment at the end where you kind of feel you're feeling what Peter's feeling, and as MJ is talking about, like she's happy that she got into the school and it doesn't even hurt anymore and whatever else, and you feel kind of, I don't know, something but in that performance that's just like, okay, there's a bit of depth here. But equally, I mean, she's also really funny when she needs to be, when she's like at the very start when they're talking about like, oh, it's seeing that certain spiders have pheromones and shut up, yes, my spider lord kind of thing. She can be that kind of charming, sweet thing as well. And again, in terms of like repairing this MCU Spider-Man, it's telling that this film's the first time that we hear that she is actually MJ Watson, because they clearly they were kind of leaning away from her being the equivalent of MJ entirely, and then in this film we're like, nah, it is. We'll just accept it. So yeah. We've talked about Benedict Cumberbatch and the villains. I think we've said quite a lot. I always think Willem Dafoe is fantastic. The way he can play both sides of the Green Goblin is just incredible. And he's terrifying when he switches to the whole Norman's on sabbatical, honey, kind of moments. It's just like, amazing. I love Molina, as you know, because he gets to be the good guy. I think Jamie Foxx really surprised me because I kind of hated that character in Amazing Spider-Man 2. And he gets to be like charming and quite funny in this one. So like the whole thing about that's just a tree, man, or when he's discussing with Sandman how they got their powers, and it's like, you got to be careful where you fall. And even the little moment when he's like, he gets to say to Spider-Man, oh man, I thought you'd be black. There's got to be a black Spider-Man somewhere. And as we know, there is.
It's like, I'm sorry, man.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think there has just been a lot of depth lost in the writing of Amazing Spider-Man 2. So this movie gives him a lot of smaller things that just give him more depth. So Jamie Foxx can just more play with the depth of this character more than Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I don't hate as much as most other people, but it's still not.
He's not the worst part of it. The worst thing in it is the awful blooming Harry Osborn new
Yeah,
Goblin.
it's Green Goblin. He just randomly appears towards the end.
Yeah, I'll have to give it a watch again sometime because I haven't. But again, you know better than us, I think, Harry, how well they all gel together because you've watched them all, so you can tell us, I think, better than.
He just randomly starts to work with Electro, and then after that he doesn't appear for like half an hour, and then he comes back and kills Gwen, and that's it. Like he just randomly appears towards the end of the Electro fight.
Yeah. Oh, well. And I've already said it, but this is my last note about the acting, is that I just love that they kind of, and again, it's writing as well as acting, but I do love the fact that the three Spider-Men have this kind of brotherly love thing going on. And they kind of, the way that they bond was just such a cool thing, because those characters they wouldn't kind of be angry with each other. They kind of, and it's nice to see them all know that it's like a burden that's shared being Spider-Man. It's multiversally important, you know? So, yeah. So any last thoughts on any of the acting that we haven't yet talked about from you guys?
No, I think we touched on everything.
No? Okay. I'm going to move to the direction because I only have like 6 or 7 notes, so I'll just rattle them off. And then if you guys have anything you wanted to shout out, feel free to. Okay. I have said this is John Watts is back for the 3rd time to do the MCU Spider-Man films. He was the first and for a while only director to have directed all 3 parts of a trilogy until James Gunn did Guardians of the Galaxy 3. But I think they're still the only 2. Actually, no, Peyton Reed, I think, did all 3 Ant-Mans as well, unfortunately. So, yeah. But at the time, so, yeah. And I've already mentioned the first attack in the traffic with Otto Octavius and then Green Goblin turning up at the end of it. And just so good. It was reminiscent of the Sam Raimi films and the way they're directed for me. I like little things like whenever Peter is talking on the phone to MJ, it does a little split screen video phone thing for you, for the audience. Yeah. Or the little visual homage with the smashed goblin mask to the kind of amazing Spider-Man number 50 or Spider-Man 2 moment with the Spider-Man No More. Love the apartment fight. It's epic. Sorry.
The scene where Doctor Strange does the astral projection thing and you can see like the spider sense.
Yeah, I didn't notice that until I read it on IMDb or somewhere where somebody was like, pay attention because after he's been out of his body for a little while, you see the little wavy lines over his head, which is like the way the comic does spider sense. And I was like, that's so cool. I would never have noticed that. But yeah, completely agree. And yeah, as I say, it's very effective when the kind of characters arrive, but you can definitely tell that they are pausing for effect. But again, it's a good use of humor, the way that they're kind of not trusting Andrew Garfield and he has to kind of go crawling around the ceiling. And I read somewhere that the throwing of the bread roll by MJ at Andrew Garfield was apparently improvised. Zendaya just did it at the time and was like, I wanted to see if you had the tingle. And I just love that without this, knowing that this isn't even in the script, that Andrew Garfield's response was like, I have the tingle, but not for bread. Which is just, yep. Okay. Funny stuff, man. So, yeah. Any thoughts from you? Anything that stands out in terms of the direction of the movie then?
No.
No?
Yeah, not really.
We have talked at length about, like I said, the mirror scenes look fantastic. That last, I mean, we could talk for hours about the last fight, the way it's all choreographed on the Statue of Liberty, the slightly more Captain America-ized version of it. I think that whole fight scene is just so difficult to pull off and yet done beautifully. You never lose which character you're following, even though the 3 Spider-Men look very similar. There's never a sense of like what's going on when you're watching one of the others. And I think I posted to our Discord the one shot, which I just think is possibly the most beautiful shot in the MCU, when the 3 Spider-Men just land in different poses as they're all leaping together. And it's just so good. I think just visually amazing stuff. So yeah, cool. So yeah, talking about that, then the last kind of section, well, the last couple of sections, we'll start with the VFX. And as I said, I've mentioned already the improved villain appearances for the Goblin and the Electro. The CGI for Lizard and Sandman was good, but I think it was overused. Quite obvious that the actor wasn't there, and that when they're cured, they're just using like stock footage at the end of the film. One thing I did find incredible was that when I read that to make them appear the same as they were, that both Willem Dafoe and Alfred Molina had been de-aged to the way they looked back in the day, because that's flawless. I could not have told you that was de-aging stuff the way that. Again,
also.
Tobi, you were on the Captain Marvel review and we mentioned like the Nick Fury
Yeah.
de-aging was a little bit iffy. I'd say this one is just you can't even tell.
No, it looks great.
Yeah. I read somewhere as well that the Doc Ock tentacles are entirely CGI in this movie when they were previously mostly practical with a mix of a little bit of CG. And again, I think it works really well, which I don't always normally agree with, but I can't tell that it's purely CGI. There was nothing actually physically there on set, and they look just the same as the previous ones to me. I like the little touch of, and again, it took me so long to realize this, that when he's trying to clean his suit and he can't get it clean, Spider-Man, and he goes to get Electro, it looks like, for some reason, I always thought he was wearing a new suit, but it's just the actual suit turned inside out.
They show a scene where that's when he's cleaning it and he just turns it off and he's like, hey,
yeah,
this looks all right.
Which is why it's like black, but with little bits of what looks like exposed wiring and stuff on the outside. I was like, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I love the actual suit that we get at the end of the movie. I hope this isn't the only time we see it, because for me, it's just finally, like I said, the way it takes inspiration from Maguire's spider symbol, Garfield's bright primary colors, the fact that it's fabric and not an Iron Man suit, how vibrant and bright the red and especially the blue is. I really love it, and I want to see it again. And I love the animated credits at the end as well. The fact that everybody gets a little cartoon drawing. So, yeah. Any thoughts from you guys on any of the stuff I've mentioned there, or about just visual effects or special effects in general?
I really like the effect in the end with the time rifts.
Oh, yeah.
I think that looks really, really good.
Yeah, definitely. Even though, like I said, I still can't make out those silhouettes, but apparently real geek people or people like our Harry can. So, yeah.
There's a lot more, but like the ones that they show are pretty easy to work out to do.
Cool. I forgot to mention as well, by the way, not really a visual effects thing, but there is a nice Easter egg to the Hawkeye TV series, because throughout the film, but notably, well, he goes past that ice rink, that's one of them, but notably at the start of the film and a few times throughout, he actually goes by a billboard for Rogers the Musical, which we see in Hawkeye.
Yeah.
So nice bit of brand synergy, I suppose. Yeah. I'll move to the music and sound then and just say that I've written here, Michael Giacchino is the composer for this. He references the themes from previous Spider-Man films by Hans Zimmer, James Horner, Christopher Young, and Danny Elfman, plus his own themes from Doctor Strange 2016. Regarding the use of the other themes, Giacchino said he didn't want their use to be fan service and found ways to include them in a very targeted way. Him and the director, Watts, were very much in alignment in terms of when to use them and when not to use them for maximum effect. I will say I did notice myself that during the curing of the villains scenes, they always play the end of Spider-Man's Danny Elfman theme from the first two Spider-Man films, because I know that theme off by heart, because I had for a long time, my message tone was the Mary Jane Watson "Go Get 'em, Tiger" quote from the end of Spider-Man 2. And the end of that little bit of music always plays before that quote. So it's ingrained in my brain.
Go get him, Tiger.
When they were curing them and that little cue played, I was always like, that's from the Sam Raimi films. So, yeah. It's also nice that Betty Brant gets to say "Go Get 'em, Tiger" at the start of this movie as a sly little Easter egg. Or Spider.
I remember when this movie was coming out, they made like a Daily Bugle TikTok account.
Oh, yeah.
It's just like her just promoting the entire movie.
Yeah.
Like little,
she's a good actress, yeah.
Little snippets, little updates, like every day leading up towards it.
Yeah, I did say that because she was like the kind of social media presence for the Daily Bugle. The actress is called Angourie Rice, and she's the lead in the new Mean Girls musical that's just been out as at the time of listening. So, yeah, a very good. Like, there's a lot of minor characters that we don't get a chance to mention because there's so much packed in. But like her and Tony Revolori, both really good, like supporting and comedy type characters. Yeah, I love it. Music-wise, obviously, we know this is set at Christmas because they start playing "Deck the Halls" at one point, which is kind of like, it's so weird when that happened for me because I was so jarring, like, oh yeah, forget this takes place at Christmas time. And apparently the song 3, It's the Magic Number, which is brilliant, by the way, clever usage of it for the reference to the Spider-Man. Apparently it had a massive chart success off the back of this movie and went to like the top 10 in the charts for the first time in decades. I just want to say I always make a note of like little geeky things like this. So apologies if you find it a bit too nerdy. But in the scene on the bridge where Doc Ock first appears, there's a license plate on the car that says 63ASM-3, which is a reference to The Amazing Spider-Man Volume 1, Issue Number 3, released in 1963, which was the first appearance of Dr. Octopus, which is quite fitting for his first appearance in the movie. I love anything like that. It's just really good.
I watch like breakdowns of movies or TV shows after they come out and always putting that out. It's on like a random bus somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. I would never notice it, but then when you know it, it's kind of so cool, isn't it? So, yeah. Well, we'll jump into the next section then. Harry, this might be new to you because you're a first-time guest, but what we're going to do now is we're going to go through and give our favourite character, then our favourite moment or scene in the movie, then our favourite line. And Tobi, you've done this before, so presumably you have something written. So we'll start with you. What was your favourite character in the movie?
It's funny because I always forget that this exists. I was like, oh wait, no, but I have.
Then you're all on the spot.
I have a favorite character. I can say. I love going for more side characters that I think really shine, and I think for this movie, who really stood out is Otto Octavius. I think his arc is just really cool in this movie and so cleverly written. And
cool.
Yeah.
That's fair enough. What about you then, Harry? Do you have a favourite character in the movie?
I think I'll go with Green Goblin from the Fours, just best actor in the movie. Okay. I like how everything's kind of come full circle with starts with Green Goblin as the villain in Spider-Man 1, and with MJ with him as well.
Yeah, it's true. Apparently, I did read somewhere that they weren't going to have Green Goblin be the main villain of this movie, but then they realized it was just, it made sense, and it totally does. So yeah, I can see what you're saying. Not the most likable character, but certainly your favorite like performance and the way it's portrayed. For sure. My favorite character I've said is Peter Parker / Spider-Man, and I'm not going to be any more. I'm not going to specify any further than that because it's the multiverse. I'm bending the rules, so I'm picking 3 characters. What do you want from me? Cool. So Tobi, do you have a favorite moment or scene in the movie?
Yeah, I think my favorite moment is the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man catching this MJ. I think that's just a really nice callback, a really nice moment for him. And then this "Are you okay?" and then "Are you okay?"
Yeah, exactly.
Sure enough.
Cool. Oh, bless. That is really good. What about you, Harry? Then?
I think when Peter realizes that Norman switch personalities, like he's became the Goblin, like his spider sense is that going to the
yeah.
He's able to detect that something's went wrong.
Yeah, I forgot about that scene, and that scene is really good because he's like everybody's on edge, and as you say, it's just the spider sense is going like something's up here. What is it? And then that's when you just get Norman giving a different voice and everything. Really good scene. I agree. My favorite scene is, as I've kind of already alluded to, it's the 3 Spider-Men interacting. So it's the moment before the big fight when they start talking about, like I said, comparing villains and talking about like Tobey Maguire's saw back, or you can shoot spider webs out of your wrists and we can't. And oh, I'm one of the Avengers. You don't have the Avengers on your world. And no, is it a band or what kind of thing? And I just think that's such a cool kind of use of those characters. And yeah, I love that they all interact as friends and that they're all trying to big up. When Andrew Garfield starts feeling depressed and it's like, I want you to see it. You're amazing. You're too hard on yourself. Like, oh, bless.
Yeah,
that's cool.
I can't prove this, but I feel like the more fun stuff version has a significantly longer. This moment where they all talk with each other at the Statue of Liberty is, I think, a lot longer in this movie.
Okay.
And I feel like because it goes on so long, I'm like, okay, we did this now. Can we move on? We're comparing every detail and every story, and I'm like, yeah, we kind of got it now.
Yeah. Well, there's 2 moments in the theatrical version of the film. It's actually split into 2 moments because there's a moment before the bad guys arrive when they before they fight, and then there's a moment when they tried to fight them and they've basically lost terribly, and that's when they say like, "What's going on? We're getting completely schooled here, and I thought you were Peter too." And no, we'll take them on one at a time, and that's the best way to do it, kind of thing. So yeah, I like all of that personally. But yeah, I haven't seen the More Fun Stuff version. I forgot to say up top, I just watched my 4K of the regular version because the More Fun Stuff isn't available, I don't think, on home media. But I know it's the one that's currently on Netflix, so it's the one that you two watched. So
well, both are on Netflix. You can actually choose.
All the Tom Holland movies are on Netflix.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Cool. So is there anything else?
The DVDs for everyone else, but they're still on Netflix.
Oh, cool. So was there anything else that stood out then before I talk about favourite lines from the More Fun Stuff version since we mentioned it?
I after watching looked up what else was more because I didn't notice, and there are just some moments like the interrogation scene is slightly longer. There's some more school scenes apparently, but
yeah, I read there's more with
I
Matt
really
Murdock.
noticed a difference here, though.
So.
There's one like deleted scene that they brought back.
Yeah, but they all fit in very well, so I didn't notice. I just noticed that the one interaction between these three was so long. I was like,
yeah. That's probably why it was cut down. And yeah, I'll have to look up the differences at some point and just see what they are. And it may even be on the Blu-ray as deleted scenes. I'll have to have a look, but I've never really watched any of that. I just watched the movie because, as we said, the movie's like 2 hours and 40 minutes anyway. It's pretty long. So yeah, cool. So yeah, favorite lines. Then we'll go around and ask you, Tobi. Do you have a favorite line from the movie?
No, favorite line. Favorite line? Not really. I'm trying to think.
There's a lot, to be fair. There's humorous lines. There's like emotional lines. There's whatever. But
narrowing down to one is hard right now. I have to think a minute.
Fair enough. Do you have anything that sticks out, Harry, at all?
I like the scenes where when Ned finds out he's got magic and he's throwing up here over it, he's like, "Yeah, I'm totally magic now."
I'm magic now. I got Dr. Strange magic.
That's cool. That's a good one. Yeah, it was actually from the end of the movie. I think it sums it up quite well, and it's basically when Peter is at Aunt May's grave and Happy Hogan arrives.
I lost a good friend a while back. Felt like this. It hurts because they're gone, and then it hurts all over again because you remember what they stood for, and you wonder, is all that gone too?
No, it's not gone. Everyone that she helped, they'll keep it going.
You really think so?
I know it.
Which I think it's a great summation of the themes of the film overall. And it's also always nice to get a reference back to Tony Stark's death, I guess. So, yeah. Anything springing out to you, Tobi?
Well, it's a funny line that I just think is funny. Is
So, do you have a best friend too?
I did.
You did?
He died in my arms. After he tried to kill me. It's heartbreaking.
yeah, and then later he tells Peter that he's not going to.
Yeah,
he says,
so, I'm not going to turn evil. Even though we know that in the comic he becomes Hobgoblin, so maybe a slight reference to that as well. So cool. Right, well, I'm going to jump into the audience response section now because it's not super long, and then we'll come back and give our conclusions and our score out of 5 stars. So be ready, gents, for that. But yeah, I'm going to start the audience interaction. I'm probably going to start doing this a little bit more from now on with just general overview of the kind of the critical response overall of the film and the financial response. So I will say that this film received positive reviews from critics and grossed over $1.9 billion worldwide, surpassing its predecessor as the highest grossing film released by Sony Pictures. It became the highest grossing film of 2021, the 6th highest grossing film of all time, the highest grossing Spider-Man film, and set several other box office records, including those for films released during the COVID-19 pandemic. The film received a nomination for Best Visual Effects at the 94th Academy Awards, among numerous other accolades. So yeah, and I did put out messages throughout social media just asking what everybody's thoughts were on Spider-Man No Way Home. DK, even though he couldn't be on this episode, did provide us with some feedback. So thanks for that, DK. He just said he gives the film 4.5 stars and says, The best Spider-Man movie, if only for the sheer amount of stuff this thing crams into its runtime, and that's before the relentless waves of emotion begin to bombard you. It loses half a star for not featuring more Venom and for being too late to include Stan. R.I.P. Absolutely. From Facebook, I have a few things. Ian Scone says, I loved it personally. Connor Esser, hi Connor, he's been on the podcast a few times, says 5 stars times 3 Spider-Men equals 15 stars. And his partner in crime, George White from the Pasty Sheep podcast, says, as a first-time cinema experience, perfect. On a rewatch, not so much. Would have loved the original Craven idea. Glad his origin story came full circle. Give us street-level college dropout Spidey, Peter Parker, pre-Parker Industries. Yeah, I did read somewhere there was originally a plan to feature a Craven the Hunter story before they went on the multiverse angle, but Tom Holland and the director haven't said what that would be in case it still happens, which it might. You never know. Also from Facebook, Laura Johnson says, I absolutely adored it. For me, Andrew was my favorite Spider-Man, and I'm so glad we got to see them all together and share their own versions. The dynamic and chemistry between the 3 of them was absolutely brilliant, from them talking about how their suits work to their losses. One of the most perfect Marvel movies, in my opinion. And from over on Twitter, Mary is owning 2024 at Brand New Mary. Hello, Mary. Says, OMG, I went to see this having watched next to nothing in the MCU, but I did watch Tobi's Spider-Man, and let me tell you, it was a super fun movie. I laughed and cried. What a great movie. And Thomas Labernick at T Labernick just says, awesome. Definitely hit me in the feels with the death, fun and heartwarming and sad. Great movie. JA Productions, Jamie on our Discord, chimed in and says, I haven't thought about this movie since it came out, to be honest, which is surprising because of how big a deal it was. It's due a rewatch, as the only time I saw it, it was in the cinema, and I was definitely swept up by the surprises, so I couldn't look at the film critically. So there we go. And that's all of the audience response. So, fellas, as I say, we all that's left for us to do is to give our conclusions, if we have anything we wanted to say, kind of final thoughts, and then give a score out of 5. Again, Tobi, you've done this before. Harry, this will probably be a first-time experience for you. So do you guys want me to go first before I put the pressure on you, or no?
I can start.
Tobi, you take us away, then you start for us.
Yeah, so I already talked about this on the Discord, but for people that are not there, I initially didn't even plan to watch this movie for the review because I remember it very well and I don't have time in my life. And then I decided to, you know what, I'm going to put it on my second screen while doing something else so that at least I can refresh myself on the plot point. And after 30 minutes, I just went downstairs, gone to my big TV and said, you know what, I'm going to watch it. Because Spider-Man movies have just such an energy to them that they're just always fun, always great watch. There's just an energy to Spider-Man that just other superhero movies just cannot replicate, I think. Just a really great energy to it. And this movie is doing this energy, doing this perfectly, bringing up other Spider-Mans, showing the differences between them, the quirks that they have, bringing all the villains in, trying to fix some stuff from the other movies as well, but also having it, and this trilogy, also fixing stuff from this trilogy, but having it for the most part feel not very retroactively tinkering with stuff. Feels very organic in most things, and the plot is great. The ending is great. The ending, I mean, we see how this goes on with Spider-Man 4. I think this would have been more of a place for a reboot, but money talks, and we will have another one. But we're talking about this movie. I just have give this movie. We're doing out of 5, out of 10, out of
5, always.
Out of 5. Okay, we're doing 5 out of 5 then.
Wow. Okay. Cool. I'll go next, Harry, to give you a chance to gather your thoughts because I know you haven't done this before and think of what you want to say. So mine's always written down and thought about because I always like to write it and get my thoughts in gear. So if it sounds like I'm reading it, that's usually why. I just said, if I can find it, there it is. A little bit about me. I bloody love Spider-Man. I always say it's a toss-up between Spidey and Superman for my favorite superhero, or heck, my favorite fictional character. I love the comics. I grew up with the cartoons, then the films, and they mean the world to me. I've even got action figures of Spidey and Doc Ock from Spider-Man 2 that I've had since 2004. All this to say that, I might not be the most subjective reviewer, but screw it. This is a special film, and it could have been custom-made just for me. I may not be able to say it's flawless with nitpicks I could mention, but it's a situation where I just don't give a crap about any problems because they're far outweighed by the great stuff we got. Repairing the MCU Spider-Man would have been enough, but the fan service, and I use the term in the best way here, was just sublime. Characters I never thought I'd see again came back. They had an arc. They were relevant to the story, and it just hit me in the feels, and so did that ending. People will poo-poo comic book films in the MCU and Phase 4 and whatever else, but these really are our modern myths, and this is what it's all about for me. Heroism, sacrifice, tough choices, companionship, identity, and way more. The best use of the multiverse by far, a brilliant Spider-Man movie, and a powerful experience that I just unapologetically love and could rave about for hours, but instead, I'll just say 5 out of 5 for me as well. So, Harry, any sort of conclusion, thoughts, and a score out of 5 from you?
I think this was the most excited I ever was for a Marvel movie.
Wow.
Probably the last time I have been excited for a Marvel movie.
For a while.
It was like I was watching my childhood on screen. I'd spent so much time watching Spider-Man with my sister or just other family. And so that was a great experience the first time watching it. Now, 2 years later, first time I've watched it again afterwards. It's been forgiven better since I've watched them, all the live-action Spider-Man movies together to build up to it. I'm also playing Spider-Man 2 at the minute as well, so it's been a very Spider-Man week.
You're so sly. You've got the Spider-Man 2 game as well.
Nearly finished.
Oh yeah. All right, sure enough.
And so now this is a 5 out of 5 movie.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah, well, it's not hard to work out the average then. This is 5s out of 5s, everyone. So this is the second film ever on the Silver Screen Podcast to get a perfect score of 5 out of 5. Well done, Spider-Man No Way Home. Fantastic stuff. So yeah, thanks so much to both of you guys, for Tobi for joining me on yet another Marvel thing, and for Harry for appearing for the first time on the podcast. Did you find it relatively painless, Harry? You enjoyed it?
It's very fun.
Awesome. Cool. Well, we might have you on again sometime if we talk anything geeky, so keep an ear out and give my best to your mum and family, obviously. And yeah, thanks if you're still listening. Thanks for listening to this review. Hopefully we're all going to be heading off to see Madam Web and enjoying it in cinema soon. In the meantime, you can always find me and the podcast at all of the links that are in the episode description. Feel free to tip us or buy us a coffee at our coffee account that's in there as well. Chat us up on social media. Get in touch if you'd like to be a guest, or email us. I think all the information will always be in the information box below. Tobi, do you have anyone that you wanted to, anywhere you wanted to shout out, or anywhere people can find you?
No, currently not yet. There might be something coming up. Like when the next time I am a guest, hopefully it is ready. Which I think it will be a while when I don't have my schedule.
That's fair enough. What about you, Harry?
So
okay.
Yay, welcome me to something else.
You've got nothing to share either, Harry, no?
No.
Cool. Well, you can probably hopefully hear these two on the podcast again. I know, Tobi, we do have another one planned relatively soon, and it is definitely not a Marvel one for once. Well, I say relatively soon. It's this year. I'll tell you that much.
I was going to say, isn't the next one like June or something, or July?
It's a while away, actually, but, you know.
Soon.
Maybe I was exaggerating when I said soon. I'm wishing the year away.
It's the MCU version of soon.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Well, before we get any plot resolution to the MCU post credits, but yeah, cool. So as I say, hopefully you've enjoyed this little tie-in to the newest Sony Spider-Man release, or if you've just wanted to revisit Spider-Man No Way Home, or like Harry, just revisit all of the Spider-Man films. Hopefully you've enjoyed taking this trip with us, and we look forward to seeing the 3 Sony films this year, and hopefully at some point soonish seeing Beyond the Spider-Verse and seeing what that can do. So. Stay tuned to the Silver Screen Podcast. We'll always be back with more reviews, whether it be cult classics with TK, the regular ones with me here, or any upcoming surprises that you may have or that we may have revealed by this point. And yeah, thanks again, as I said, everybody that's joined us for this episode. Thank you to my 2 guests. And remember, in the epic words of Arnie, we'll be back.
I'll be back.
You've been listening to the Silver Screen Podcast, hosted by Michael Wilson and DK. Produced and edited by Mike Wilson. Additional material and behind-the-scenes sections by DK. Follow us on social media. Links to all of our social media pages can be found via the Linktree page listed in the episode's description. This podcast is part of the Mike's Podcast Network. You can listen to this and our sister podcasts on all good podcast providers by searching for Silver Screen Podcast or Mike's Podcasts. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share far and wide. Thank you for joining us. Come back next time for more movie magic, and hopefully this can be the beginning of a beautiful friendship. Cut!